Welcome everyone. Hi, my name is Meredith Henson. I'm the Head of Partner Success at Totara, and I am joined by Matt Lineker, our Onboarding and Enablement Lead.
Hello.
So today, we're going to be talking about onboarding with the Totara Talent Experience platform. I've got a few slides to get through, and then I will go into kind of a live demonstration from the point of view of someone who's just joined the organization. While we are waiting for folks to join up, instead I'm kind of slowing this down, I'm going to just run a quick poll. It should be a welcome poll, but it's currently called Untitled. And it's just an anonymous poll to see who I'm speaking to today. So I'd like to know, who I'm talking to or talking at. So are you currently using a Totara product? Are you thinking about using Totara? Are you a Totara partner? Are you someone else? So someone who works at Totara, someone who's, I don't know, none of the above, or it's complicated. It would be great to know. So as you folks are working through that poll, as I say, is anonymous, and it's just us, Matt and I being curious. So as I say, today's session will be a few slides. I promise it's not death by PowerPoint. I've kept them very short. And then I'll be following by a live demo, and I'll be answering questions throughout the session. I'll take breaks. Please do post those questions via the Q&A. It's really easy for Matt and I to track them in the Q&A tool versus the chat, because you might post a question, then a few people say hello and then your question's gone. Whereas in the Q&A, we can see what questions we have and haven't answered. And if we don't get to your question, then we can cover it later on in the Totara community forums, and we can see which ones and how we've answered them as well. But any general comments or discussion, please use the chat. Matt will be watching both the Q&A and the chat area and keeping everything on track and helping me. And occasionally I like to surprise Matt with requesting a random link or a link to a resource at any time, just to keep him on his toes. Okay. So any links he'll be posting there in the chat as well. Now, this session is being recorded, which means that you can go back and watch again or pass on to colleagues if you think it will be valuable to them. I am aware that I've got quite a bit to go through, so I do talk pretty fast. So if you need to watch it again, it'll be up on YouTube, and you can slow it down. For some might say I have a challenging accent. We will be posting that recording. You'll get a copy of it if you're attending live, but it'll also be available in the community in the next few days, and you'll be able to watch it as required. And if there's any follow-up or that we need, so any questions that we can't answer or don't get to today, or if you think of a question just after we've ended the call, feel free to post in the discussion forums. Okie dokie. So let's have a look at this poll. So the majority of folks are currently using a Totara product. We've got 16% of people considering using Totara. We've got the same number of folks who are Totara partners, and then a few other someone else's. And that shows me that I'm going to have to define a few things, but most folks know what I'm talking about when I'm responding things. So speak up if you don't know any of the terminology I'm using, but I will try to define things as I go. Alrighty, so Matt, anything I need to know before I start?
No, just to say, I'm just posting some of the links there as well. So as Meredith mentioned, if you're not already a member of the Totara community, you can sign up for a free account. I've added the link there, and that's where we'll post this recording of the webinar. And I've just added a link to that in the chat as well. So yeah, go and have a look there tomorrow. And you can also access like a whole range of webinars on demand in there as well, including demos of the Talent Experience platform that Meredith's run in the past, and also customer stories. For example, Rebecca's in the chat today, and you can see how an organization is using Totara for themselves. So yeah, that's all to say really.
Excellent, thank you. Alrighty, so welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for anyone who's listening to this in the future. So I am talking about onboarding with the Totara Talent Experience platform today. And the Total Talent Experience platform, which occasionally I might shorten to the TXP, is made up of the 3 Totara products. That's Totara Learn, our learning management system, Totara Engage, our learner experience platform, our LXP, and Totara Perform, our performance management system. So these can be used individually. You can use 2 or 3 in any combination. All 3 together we call the Talent Experience platform, because they provide that the full learning and development suite of software and activities. So you've got your formal learning, your instructor-led training across your LMS. You've got your social learning and collaboration, and informal learning across Engage. And you've got your performance activities, your skills and competency management, and your goals management across Totara Perform. And there's connection points across all. So the way that I'm going to be talking today about onboarding is looking as if you've got the whole suite of products and that you can connect and use features from each of these across your onboarding platform or program. Okay. So let's start with the requirements of an onboarding, our aims when we build an onboarding program. So ultimately, we want to welcome staff to the organisation. We want to reassure them that they've made a good choice in joining the team, and help them slip quickly into the new role to be safe and competent in that role. There is some employment administration, there's forms to fill out, safety regulations to follow, various legal and financial requirements to meet. So there is some admin involved, obviously, in onboarding. For many organisations, there's also compliance and mandatory training. And again, this is to make sure that people are safe, that they are compliant, they're capable, and potentially happy across their new role and within this organisation. We also want new starters to see their current learning and development plan. They want to know what they need to do and when they need to do it by, but they also want to be able to see opportunities for future growth and development. And we want folks to connect with their managers, their colleagues, their peers, their team, and anyone across the organisation. So we want people to connect with other people already at that organisation. And what do we want their onboarding experience to be as an organisation? Hopefully this is what we want anyway. We'd like it to be automated. And this is particularly important for large organisations and those with a high turnover. So organisations that have very seasonal work, retail, hospitality, where you have a high turnover, or groups of a lot of people starting at once in certain periods of time throughout the year. We also want this experience to be personalised, we want to be understanding and embrace the fact that everyone is different. People are going into different roles across your organisation and coming into the organisation with different experience and different abilities. And we want to be able to respond to that. We also want it not overwhelming. We've had a few recent new starters at Totara, and I've heard the term drinking from the fire hose, which I've never heard before, which amused me greatly. So we don't want that feeling that there's a lot. Joining a new organisation is already can be quite a scary and full-on experience, especially if it's someone's first job. So we don't want their onboarding experience to be overwhelming. It's going to slow them down and damage their confidence in terms of coming into that new organisation and the new job. And we also want it to be really obvious what they have to do and when they need to do it by. That's for us as well as for that new starter. And we want to provide all of this in a very supportive and engaging environment. We want to give people the time, the encouragement and direction that they need to onboard successfully and in a timely manner. And we want people to provide that ability to connect, to socialise and network. And hopefully, we also want to be able to look at that onboarding experience and continuously improve it and be open to changing that onboarding experience, whether it's adding more automation or different courses or different content, or personalising it even further for the people joining your organisation. So before even getting to the system, we need to be really clear to these new starters, these onboarders, on where they're going, what they'll do when they get there and how they do it. So as I say, starting a job's quite a lot. It's a lot to process for an individual. So make sure things like the login instructions to your system are super clear, and also how they can go and get help. So, you know, not every time someone's login is going to work for various reasons. So when you are directing folks to your talent experience platform, make sure those login instructions are super clear, and yeah, they've got an option of where to go for help. And that help is going to be readily available and friendly. You might also consider using the user tours functionality across Totara. If you've not used this before, the Totara community has a beautiful example of that. If you haven't run it for a little while, you can go to the community, scroll to the very bottom of that page, and there's a little link that says reset user tour. And what that does is pop up kind of little box, almost like a wizard guide, showing you different navigation points and important information or links or areas across that site. Building them can take a little bit of work, but it is very satisfying once you've got that set up, and will help people as soon as they join and log into the site for the first time, know exactly where to go. Even the best designed software and website, when you first go to it, there is the moment of, well, where do I go first moment, and the user tours can really help reassure folks. Also consider using courses and microlearning and resources to help folks use that system. So a Totara course about Totara, or resources about how to use go through the onboarding process. The more information around how to use the system, the better, as long as it's not, again, drinking from the fire hose. Okay, so back to what we want as an organization when we are creating and supporting an onboarding program or process. So there's lots of ways to automate the onboarding of users in the Totara Talent Experience platform. Obviously, this starts with adding users to the site. So we have some functionality called HR import for the 16% of you that aren't using Totara. And that allows you to upload either maybe a CSV file if you've just got a small number of users, or if you've got a lot of users, or you've got a lot of users changing at any time. You can use that HR import system to connect really easily, just through configuration typically, to your HR system, and allow Totara access to collect information about users and to update them. That will create their account, that will assign them to jobs, that will assign them to positions, and assign them to organizations. So by positions, I mean their roles, their jobs, and organizations could be their team, their department, their location, or any of those things. Then once you've added those users to the site, dynamic audiences is a piece of functionality within Totara which allows a lot of automation. And what that dynamic audiences functionality does is group users together based on various rules or criteria. And you will see in second to next slide, that you can create an audience based on people that have just joined the organization. And once you've built these audiences, or an audience specifically for new starters, you can use that audiences functionality to do things like assign individuals learning plans. And those learning plans can be assigned to automatically populate with courses, competencies, programs, and certifications. Now, I'm going to take a second here and just define those things, because again, we've got some folks that aren't familiar with Totara, and terminology can be different across different systems. So courses are containers for activities. So a course might be a resource, a SCORM, an e-learning activity. It might be a face-to-face event. It might be a quiz and a certificate. That might be a course. A program is a collection of courses which can be completed in either a set order, or in more of an adaptive pathway. So they might get to choose 2 of 3 from this number of courses, or they might get to choose different sets of courses to complete. So those are for bigger qualifications. Then we have certifications, and they are like programs in that they are made up of multiple courses. But certifications have a certification path and a recertification path. So that means that you might complete a certain set of courses to earn your certificate, but then you might need to complete a certain other set of courses, or just the one course, to recertify. It's a bit like first aid, where you'll do a couple of days training, and then maybe every 12 months you'll do a refresher course. And within Totara, we have this all automated with reminders and escalations and big scary naggy emails to your manager if you don't certify. So that's really around compliance training, people's safety, people's ability to do their job tied around those certifications. And then there's competencies. Now, competencies are the skills, behaviors, and knowledge people need to be safe, effective, efficient, happy in their role. Often called skills-based learning. Competencies is just the name of the functionality. You can change that as you so wish. I'm really starting to refer to competencies more as skills. So I'm kind of using skills and competencies interchangeably across this presentation. But you can, and let's see whether I use competencies or skills here, you can automatically assign competencies excuse me, competencies to individuals based on belonging to a particular audience. And I'll drill into a little bit more around the skills-based learning in a couple of slides. I promised you it wasn't going to be all slides, and it won't be, but in a few more slides, we'll talk a bit more about those. Also talk a little bit more about performance activities, so appraisals, check-ins, reviews, activities to focus people's performance and focus on their ongoing development. And you can automate the assignment of those performance activities, again, based on those audiences. And then finally here on this screen, we also have notifications and reminders. And as I hinted at within the certifications, we can automate reminders to complete items, reminders that you've been in, or alerts that you've been enrolled in these items. And these can be personalized as well as automated and pre-scheduled on a certain basis. Now I'm desperate for that sip of water, Matt. So any questions?
Hi, quite a few people are sort of messaging just to myself and Meredith, so not everyone can see this, but a few people are asking if this webinar will be recorded. So we are recording the webinar and it will be available in the webinars on demand section in the community. I'll post that link again in the chat now, but yeah, if anyone has a clash or anything else, we are recording the webinar and it will be available after the event today.
Amazing, thank you, Matt. Okay, so just when you thought I had talked about audiences enough, surprise, there's another 2 slides about them. But they do underpin most of the automation and personalization across the talent experience platform. So just a little bit more on audiences. So in addition to what we've just covered here, audiences also allow you to select which courses, which learning items, in fact, are available in the learning catalog. So you can in fact create an audience of new starters or onboarders and say that only they see a certain chunk of courses around onboarding, or even prevent them from seeing all of the other courses, programs and certifications that aren't available to them yet. Maybe they need to complete all of that onboarding content. So again, it's around not creating an overwhelming environment. They just see the courses that they need to do. You may opt to let them see the courses that are available. Again, it's that balance between knowing exactly what to do, but also being excited about what they'll be able to do next. It's kind of an individual call. It kind of depends on how massive your learning catalog is really. Enrollment also allows you to bulk enroll users into programs, certifications and courses, and allows you to assign what's called a dashboard. Now, a dashboard is like a portal or navigation point that people hit when they first log into the site. It's going to show, and I'll show you this when I log in as my new starter on my demo site, but that allows you to create a widget or block-based environment where you can tailor add certain items across that dashboard, that kind of landing page. And you can assign those dashboards by audiences. So again, you might have an audience for new starters or onboarders, and they just see that dashboard. And that dashboard, particularly so they don't get overwhelmed, might be very simple and just have a little bit of content. And again, that's personalizable. So you can filter the content that they see. You can do that by access right at a very granular level. You can use a block type or widget called the featured learning block. And what that provides, and again, we'll see in a minute, is multiple tiles or images or navigation, graphical navigation points And you can, have a whole stack of, maybe 20 of these tiles, but even within one dashboard, you can apply these audience visibility restrictions so that you might have an onboarding dashboard, but you might have an onboarding audience for head office, for warehouse, for in-store. And so they see a different subset of these navigation items that are most relevant to them. So there could be 20 of these tiles behind the scenes, but they only see the 4 that are relevant to them and what they do and where they do it. And you can also add a custom navigation for people and within an audience. So you could perhaps in the main menu area, add a link to onboarding, and again, just visible for the onboarding audience. And that might be a link to a page which has, all of the onboarding information. It might be a link to the onboarding program. It might be a link to the onboarding workspace, things that I haven't yet told you about, but we'll do in a moment. But you can create this custom navigation just very much to focus someone who is new to the system to what they need to do it and when they need to do it first. So audience roles. So for example, you can create an audience based on start date within the previous X days. So in this case, this is just a screenshot of an audience role where I might set it to within the last 30 days. If they've just been assigned a new job assignment, then they're onboarding. That might capture people that have also changed job. That might be ideal, but you can also have kind of counter rules to prevent people who are already in the system. So it might be that their first login, then they become added to the onboarding rule. So you've got lots of options, and with audiences, you can have and or if not options. So you can at a very granular level target those individuals that are joining the organization for the first time. And you can create multiple audiences for onboarders. As I say, you can have different audiences based on what they do and where they do it, so they position their organization, and you can even update those audiences, those onboarders, based on what they have completed or not completed across their learning. So maybe they're like an intro onboarder, and then once they complete a couple of courses, they become an intermediate onboarder or a part 2 onboarder or a phase 2 onboarder. So again, it's automation and personalization across this process. So personalization, is extremely important, and that's not just so people feel a sense of belonging, but it's also so they connect to the system, they connect with their team, but also so you're delivering the right content at the right time in the right way to these individuals. So you can do things like create what are called custom profile fields. So in your account, you've got your name, your email address, etc., and you can add, just through the administration interface, so it's all through the UI, a custom profile field. And you can even award badges to people when they complete those profile fields. So maybe they upload their picture, or they tell you about their interests or their hobbies or what music they're into. And you can award that. And that not only allows other people to see that information potentially, and then again connect with those other individuals, but it gives them that encouragement to share a little bit more about them. And then you can further personalize, information to them based on the data that they've inputted. So for example, you might get people to say, what music they're into, and then filter them into a particular course which focuses, on rock or jazz or drum and bass, whatever you like. So you can have these almost self-select audiences. So people that have similarities, could be hobbies, it could be work related, it could be both, that they can get into those courses and create a community of practice and have a discussion, again feel connected. They also have people have an option to set their own profile preferences, like how they interact with the calendar or how it's displayed, or their preferred language. And they can choose how they receive their own notifications messages. They might prefer, particularly when they're starting, to have notifications pushed to the mobile app, particularly maybe they haven't got their kit hasn't arrived yet, so they're primarily working off their mobile. And then within the dashboard, you can have personalized tasks and alerts, and a list of someone's current learning. And I'll show you what those look like when we log in as my rookie in a moment. Again, very much promising, not that many slides left. So of course, a big part of onboarding is formal learning, instructor-led learning, mandatory and compliance training. You know, not only is this a legal requirement, but ensures the safety of our staff. And the Talent Experience platform supports this through a number of ways. So we've got some functionality called learning plans, which can be automatically populated with appropriate workflows. So whether you create the content and submit it to your manager for approval, or your manager directs it, or it becomes a bit of a dialogue and review process. We've got courses we've talked about. They can be online, offline, blended, adaptive, assessed. So you might want to ensure people have completed this learning. It might need to be auditable. So you might run quizzes with a certain pass rate. We've got programs, again, can be set or adaptive and have built-in notifications and reminders, but also really key to this is relative due dates. So you can say, all right, on the day that you started the organization, you have 30 days to complete this onboarding program. And it doesn't matter whether you started yesterday or you start next week, that 30 days starts on your start date. Same thing with certifications. But we've got, you know, a lot of reminders around recertification, and we've got some really nice red, amber, green status reporting across certifications built into the system. And of course, you know, a lot of people have done some of this training. They've maybe done, you know, they're how to use fire extinguishers, or they may have recently done a first aid certificate. So they can also upload their previous learning and upload evidence of that learning. And then you can award as a manager or an administrator, as an L&D manager, we call RPL, record of prior learning, and allow completion based on this evidence. So I mentioned the Totara mobile app. So you can, maybe before your equipment arrive, make a start on training and use the mobile app to complete your content, go into courses, enroll in courses, review resources. But, you know, quite often when we start, particularly if you're working remotely normally, you might be traveling quite a long distance to get to that, you know, head office to do your initial induction or onboarding, or meet the team for the first time. So you might be on a train or a coach or even a plane for a little while, and you can complete and start your learning while you're traveling. And you can do that, you know, through the mobile app. We have a responsive design, so you can do that while you're connected to the internet. Or you can download some of the e-learning activities, the SCORM activities, and complete those offline, particularly important while you're on a plane to do that offline, and then you can resynchronize those results later. And as I mentioned, you might decide to have push notifications for those reminders. So don't forget your program's due next week, your assessment has been marked, all of those things, quite convenient to have it pushed to the mobile app. Alrighty, any questions, Matt?
Sorry for that sort of suspenseful silence there.
I was excited.
Sorry, I was just getting links and things. So we've got quite a few questions coming through. Some of them about badges, which I've saved for you because I know how much you love badges.
I do love badges.
So one question, which I've sort of answered, but there's a little bit of a workaround that maybe we could talk about, about the idea of users self-enrolling into an audience. Rick is saying, I think Meredith may have identified a workaround so that users can sort of do this, i.e. we would create a custom profile field that a user can edit based on the content of that custom profile field. We could have the system automatically enroll them in an audience. True? Question mark.
True. Exclamation mark. Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
So I was saying typically audiences would be something that a site admin would control, but that is sort of workaround, isn't it?
Yeah. So you can base audience membership on profile fields, not all types of profile field, like, you know, not on an image, but, you know, on like a checklist or a drop down selection. You can use that as a criteria for audience, which is kind of neat, I think.
That is neat. And here's another question for you. When it comes to rewarding profile fields with badges, I found no criteria in the rules for uploading the avatar picture in connection with badges. Is there a possibility?
I thought, well, I thought we added that a few versions back, actually. pretty certain you can. Yeah, well, we'll double check after this, but yeah, I thought you could. Because I remember being excited when it was added, because as Matt says, I love badges.
And could a manager or direct leader enroll an employee on a course?
Yeah, I mean, if you so wish, you can it's just tweaking the access rights so that they can add users. There are a couple of ways of doing that. You could do that through the learning plan as well. So if you add people to the learning plan, then they can be enrolled in that course. So that's a second way of doing it.
Okay, and just on the Totara mobile app, Meredith, is it easy to customize a Totara mobile app?
Yeah, so there's a bit like the using the Ventura default theme on the web application. You can add in your logos and your colors. You can do the same thing with the mobile app. If you want to get really exciting and do full-on customizations, not just to the look and feel, you can do that. That will have obviously go through a partner. There is a developer doc link about how to customize the mobile app. There is just obviously the fun and games and flaming hopes of working with Google Play Store and the Apple Store to publish that app.
Great. And what's the lowest version that the mobile app will work with?
Oh, that is a good question. It will work with Totara 13. The ability to see engage resources, you require 14 or 15. I'll have to double check on that. I think I'll say 15 on the side of 15. So 13 is the minimum version.
Thanks, Meredith. Sort of smashed through the questions there. So
yeah, excellent. Rapid fire round. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Alrighty. Last few slides. I keep on promising it. I will deliver. So how do we keep new starters engaged and motivated through what might be an intense or lengthy, or being honest with ourselves, it could be a bit boring process of onboarding? So things like awards and rewards, badging. Again, you can award badges at the activity level, the course level, the program completion level. You might even want to issue certificates, the digital certificates, save the trees and all, but people still really like knowing that their efforts are being recognized and that there is an end result, not just having saying, yeah, you've completed onboarding, having something that they can see to acknowledge that work that they've put into it. You can also introduce a degree of gamification within learning, and maybe Matt, you'll be so kind as to add the gamification guide link into the chat, please. So you can add things like adaptive learning, hidden activities. You can use what's called the activity results block to even anonymously show the top grades for a quiz that sits within your course or courses. People competing between themselves, amongst themselves, with themselves. That's key to gamification. We also have across the Total Talent Experience platform a machine learning driven recommendations engine. And this can allow people to kind of explore and discover what's going to be available to them once they've completed their onboarding. Clicking around and following those links and going down that kind of development and information rabbit hole might make them more confident in using the system, and generally help empower them as a learner, knowing once they've completed this, they get to move on to this more exciting stuff, or once they've completed onboarding, they've got this journey that they can go through and discover things. And support from existing staff. Quite often, some organizations, the new people might be referred to as noobs, and it might not be such a supportive environment for noobs, for newbies. But having some of the people that have been recently onboarded, and maybe folks that have been there for a little while and will be able to be compassionate and helpful with these onboarders, are there to answer questions and apply a little direction correction if someone kind of goes off piste a little bit. And also having a shared experience, knowing that there's other people going through that process, that there are other people who are onboarding, that they're not alone, they're not just one person moving through this content, that there are other people out there doing exactly the same thing. So how do we create that shared experience and offer support? We've got lots of options. One of them might be creating a dedicated onboarding course, and that might be just full of forums and scheduled chat, so people can just connect with other people and have a chat. and talk about the process. But even better than that is using the workspaces functionality. You might have a dedicated onboarding workspace where you can have that discussion, where you can comment and discuss resources that have and playlists that have been added to that workspace. And you might even divide folks who are onboarding into further smaller groups and create more of a coaching or mentoring environment where you have kind of like a peer leader for different groups of people that are going through their onboarding, and you can manage that really nicely across the workspaces functionality. So like you can have resources, individual resources, you can curate and bundle up content together in what are called playlists. And that might be, a start to finish journey for onboarding, or it might be resources that folks can dip in and out of in any order that's relevant to them and how they're working through their onboarding process. You can bundle those or curate those together in playlists, and you can check in on folks on the team. You can collect feedback at any point within a playlist with the survey tool. You can see how folks are doing. You can add and remove these surveys as required, and very much do that kind of pulse check or temperature check of folks as they're working through this onboarding process. Right. So this shared experience helps build connections and networks and encourages ongoing collaboration once they're established in their role. Other ways to help new staff connect with their team and peers. Again, I've mentioned forums, workspace discussions. You can have commentary and a lively debate on particular resources, or agreeing that you love a particular resource or love that you like a particular reply. There is schedule chat, there's live chat, there's messaging between individuals. But connecting isn't just with the people that you're going to work with or the people that in your immediate team. It's outside of the team, who to talk to about X, Y, Z. And it's also about connecting with the business that you've joined, the organization. So having information about the organization, the history, the mission statements, the people that make up or have made up that organization, the processes, what drives them, the strategies. You've got an opportunity when you use a digital platform to share that in exciting ways. So media, images, a video from the CEO, an audio file from the managing director. It's not just a lot of text, because anyone who's joined a new job recently knows there's just a lot of reading, and you can break that up using this platform. Okay, skills-based and goal-based learning. Last couple of slides. So we have this opportunity within the total performance management side of things to create skills-based learning and even driving learning through goals. So we've talked about competencies and a competency profile. This is a display of all the competencies that you have been assigned, that you might be required, that you could, should, would do, the level of proficiency you're expected to have, and the level of proficiency you currently have. And these can be assigned by your position, by your team, by your organization, by your audience, or individually. And because they can be assigned by audience, you can have dedicated onboarding competencies, again, very much focus on what people need to do to onboard, but also know, based on their role, what they need to do. So they get to see what they need to do and why they need to do it. And you can create both company goals and personal goals across the system. You can align your learning and your actions to those company goals, those missions, the team goals, the whole level of the organization goals, as well as your personal goals. You can think of them a little bit like OKRs. So it might be goals that you create in discussion with a manager, or as a learner, you might think, I'm going to start with these goals and see, this is what I want to achieve in this role. And then it can become that dialogue with your manager. So that dialogue can be captured within performance activities within the Talent Experience platform. So a key part of onboarding is setting up a clear development plan and path for new staff. And that includes, initial discussions, but also initiating ongoing and regular discussions activities and setting that expectation that this will be a collaborative effort between the staff and their manager or their team leader, and that it's taking advantage of all the good things around continuous performance management, which is smaller discussions, but they're still really meaningful, and that they happen regularly so that people can be responsive. So you can see if someone is not being challenged enough, or if they're being challenged too much, or if they're bored or underperforming, and you can respond really quickly to that if you have these regular reviews and check-ins. So it becomes very much a collaborative learning and development plan, and you can use performance activities to create that dialogue to capture agreement on the learning and development needs of an individual. And you can review someone's current learning, their current competencies and their goals, and wrap questions around those. So when do you expect this to be completed by? Do you need any further support to complete this? Well done. This is it, maybe a bonus for completing these things in advance. Gosh, wouldn't that be nice? And you can take advantage of the performance activities being kind of form-based and having multiple question types. There's a question type called a multi-select question, which is, if you picture a multi-choice question where you might have two or more right answers, and when you have a digital form, it becomes a tick box or check. And you can use those in a performance activity to create a checklist of items. And that might be divided into multiple sections. Maybe section 1 is just for the manager to complete and for the new starter to not see. And that might be, that boring and employment administration stuff. So have they sent you the tax form? Have you got their banking needs? Have you got their tax code, all of those things. And then another section might be for the staff and for the manager to use. So, how is your induction going? What challenges are you facing? Do you know who your HR rep is? Do you know where the first aid kit is? And you can use it as a checklist to ensure people are onboarding successfully and completing and knowing what they need to know when they need to know it. And what's really nice is that you can trigger the assignment of new performance activities based on the completion of other activities. So for example, you might start off with an appraisal form, which is that, their checklist, looking through and assigning competencies, coming up with a plan of what you want to do in, your first 3 months, the first 6 months, etc. Once you've completed that, your onboarding appraisal or onboarding form, then maybe those weekly, bi-weekly, monthly check-ins start kicking in, and they become scheduled as a result of completing your onboarding activity. Last slide. And of course, we want to have that, being that open to improvement and being responsive to change. So we've got those surveys and polls and feedback wrapped up throughout the process, but also we can generate, as administrators, great reporting across grading and completions. We can check on user engagement, who's engaging with content, who's engaging with other users. Is that positive engagement? Are people sharing content? Are people creating content? Are they discussing? Are they taking advantage of those workspaces? So we can use the reporting tools, the polling, the feedback, the evaluations to measure that success and see where, if at all, we need to make improvements and change that process. Alrighty, Matt, while I flick over to my demo site, any questions?
Just get a few questions come in. There's quite a good one, I think, just for everyone to be aware of. I've just answered it, but we could just talk about it a little bit. Can you have levels of admin, or do all platform administrators have access to everything? I'm chiefly concerned about confidentiality, about performance progress, one-to-ones, personal goals, sensitive information.
Ooh, that is a good question. I agree. So yeah, you're going to have very, very tailored and granular access rights across the system. So you might, my recommendation is you don't really have any more than 3 top-level site admins. You only want a handful of those. And then the way that the access rights are structured, or access roles are structured within Totara, is they're made up of capabilities, and those capabilities might be, view performance data or view, user information, and you can say basically allow or prevent across those capabilities. And there's at last count, around 600 of those different capabilities. So at a very, very granular level, you can add and remove access to certain areas or certain people or certain courses as you so need for a specific access rights, because there'll always be exceptions. So short, that was the long answer. The TLDR for that is, yeah, sure, you can sort that out, no problem.
Another question, which I don't know if we'll have time to do today, and if we don't, this is something perhaps we could post something about later on. We're going to ask if we could show how to set up an onboarding checklist.
Yeah, and yeah, we'll give that a crack. So I'll show you what it looks like, and then we can stick around it, and I can show you what the behind the scenes. Okay. Are there any other burning questions?
I think we'll just carry on for now and then come back to
okay. On the time. All right. So based on all of that, I just threw at you. I have set up some of those things within my demo site. I've created a new user. And this individual has just started at the organization. I think I set the start date for yesterday. So they're going to be, they're brand new. So this is, we can welcome to the stage Newman Greenhorn. And you can see, if I zoom out maybe a little bit here, they have been taken straight to the onboarding dashboard. And that's because I have created an audience just for new starters based on that audience rule that we saw a moment ago, which is that their start dates in the last, in this case, 30 days. So the first dashboard that they see is this onboarding dashboard. Now, in this case, I've got my widgets or blocks laid out here. You can shuffle those around. So you might have, these 4 tiles just sitting at the top and in one long line. They've just got these 4 key navigation points and just their on learning program. So I've created an onboarding program. If I click on that, they know that's exactly what they need to do right now. And these are the 4 courses that make up that program. This is the order that they need to do it, this first set and then this set. And this is their progress so far. Newman just started yesterday, so don't judge him, he hasn't done anything. And then he can jump straight into a dedicated course for onboarders and new staff, which is just a discussion area and some resources. Now, he has been assigned this program because he's in that new starter audience. So this is, again, all automatic. And it's, again, a relative date. So because he started yesterday, he's got a due date of in 30 days time. So I've given him 30 days to complete this onboarding program, which I think personally is quite generous of me. And we've got these personalized tasks and alerts. So you can see that because I've been setting things up, I've added into a bunch of stuff, including a workspace. So you can look at his workspaces. And because Mr. Greenhorn is a Greenhorn, he has just the one workspace here. So he's jumped straight to this new staff onboarding workspace. So we've got admin user saying, welcome to ABC, post your comments here. Lisa's recently started back in June. She said, nice to be here. And as Newman, we can post something here. Oops, goodness me. And then post. So you can start that discussion, people can comment and reply to that, and you start that connection. He can also see who else is in that group, and you can configure how much or how little information you see here. So you might want to hide email address, for example, you can do that. And then the library, there are the individual resources and playlists specific to induction or onboarding or for new starters here. So I can see welcome to ABC Limited, and this might be a way where I can find help or links to certain resources or items. And if I'm digging this as Newman, I can give this a like, or I can start a discussion about it. And then again, have those discussions and those comments and that user engagement with other new starters across the organization. So this is, again, all automated just because Newman's been added to this audience. He's been assigned that program. He's been assigned that dashboard. He has also been enrolled in the onboarding workspace. And he has also been assigned a new starters list of like induction competencies or skills. So this is because he's a new starter. These are the skills or competencies that he needs to achieve. And you can see that his achievement level is a big old 0 at the moment, because he's just started. Again, be nice to Newman, and where he needs to be in terms of his proficiency as this lighter color. And because he is joined as a solutions architect, these are the specific skills, behaviors, knowledge that he needs to know as a solutions consultant, as a solutions architect. So he's really made a start. Someone, I think, his manager very kindly went in and gave him a rating. And he can also go, actually, I'm absolutely smashed this. I'm going to rate myself for this. And done. Maybe he's done this in a previous job. So now he's got a rating on this. So the competency profile and all of these competencies, there was a manual rating, but the completion of competencies or the achievement of proficiency in competencies can be based on your rating, your manager's rating, and appraiser's rating. It might be completion within a learning plan. It might be completion within a performance activity. It might be based on course completion, or any wild and wacky combination of all of those things. And things can shift and change. So you might complete the course and get a pass and achieve a level of proficiency, and then your manager might need to observe you demonstrating those behaviors, or might not see you demonstrating those behaviors and downgrade your rating on that competency to kind of bump you up. And with competencies, they can also be self-assigned potentially, and managers might, as part of those discussions, as part of those performance activities, assign you new competencies to complete. So you might have, your big dreams and want to be moving to your next job already, and the manager can go, all right, to move to a senior solutions architect, you'll need to identify and complete these proficiencies or achieve these proficiencies. So it can be what you need to do now, but also what you might want to do next as well across this. In terms of activities, performance activities, we've got this idea of the new staff development plan, and here is my checklist. So as Newman, as the subject of this, here in my checklist. So this is what it looks like from the end point of view. I can select at least one of these things and submit. Ideally, all 4 would be a minimum, but the reality is that you can save as draft and go back and then update it as you complete each of these things. So as Newman's manager, and also as someone that can slip behind the scenes here and show what those checklists look like, let me just quickly log in as admin user who's Newman's manager. I can see their progress under this Teams area, see what they've been up to. I can view their competency profile, those items that can be manually rated, I can go in and rate. Or I can go into, whoops, that's not the button I wanted. It's my performance activities. Sorry, this is where I wanted to go, activities. And this is as a manager, I have the new staff development plan for our friend Newman, and you'll see we've got a different selection of questions, even though it's the same form. As a manager, I saw these, this checklist or these questions, and this next section is what we just saw Newman viewing. And behind the scenes, if I go into edit that or view this particular activity, you can see what I've done. So this is that new staff development plan. I'm not going to make any changes, but what I can do is see I've got multiple sections here. So that first section where only the manager can see it, and the second section where the subject of it and the manager can respond. And what that is a multi-select field. I can't make any changes really to it because it's live, but it's called a multi-select question. And I just gave these options. So if I create a brand new activity, who asked this question? I'll just call it Matt. And we'll call it chicken. I can add these multiple sections, as you can see, or not. And the question type is edit, content elements, add element, and then there's that multi-select option where I can just go, tax, safety, etc., and keep on going. So I can have a big old long checklist. So that's how you do a checklist within a performance activity. Right, very conscious of the time. So just 2 more slides and then that'll ask the questions. Where to find out more? You can, if you're not an existing Totara user, you can go to our website and request a demo, and we'll ask one of our partners to reach out and provide you a tailored demo, discuss your requirements. If you're not a member of the Totara community already, please feel free to join, completely free. And there's a range of resources, including plenty of webinars with yours truly and others available to you, as well as a range of amazing courses across the Totara Academy. Across our website, we have a number of resources and blocks. We have great help documentation, or you can reach out directly to a Totara partner, and we've got a list of all of our partners available again on our website. We have some more events coming up, so we'll stay next week, a week and a bit. We've got a session with Lars Harland and the Brandon Hall group, and we've got some amazing sessions coming up with some of our partners and plugins that you very, I would suggest you to join. I think there'll be great sessions. And of course, we'll be at Learning Technologies in May. Okay. Questions?
Just a couple more for those who are still here. We have one question. Are there plans to add a link to performance activities in the team dashboard, linking to activities they need to complete for that user, for example?
That's an interesting question. I guess because we've got that dedicated dashboard that we were just looking at a moment ago, where you've got all of your activities summed up, what you might do is use the featured links block to link to this page, because this is quite a nice way of saying, these are activities about you as a peer, as a manager. So I would say that perhaps having a link using the featured links block that goes straight to that page. Yes, it's one click away, but then you've got this nice dashboard which is filterable and sortable as well. So there's nothing planned, but I think that might be a nice workaround for you.
Great. Last question. If anyone else has a final question, feel free to sneak it in, but we might be finishing soon. So the survey activity is currently limited to pre-verified surveys. Is there a way for us to create our own verified survey that editing trainers can then select from the survey activity?
I'm not sure I really follow that question, but I'm guessing that you're referring to the activity type within Totara, which is called survey, which I find really difficult to work with. Instead, I use the feedback activity, which allows you to create your own questions. Is that?
Yeah, we've also got a great academy course on the feedback activity, which I'll post to you now as well. Last question, can you set up completion dates that are based on a user's scheduled work hours, usually 30 days for full-time staff and 60 days for part-time staff?
I mean, yeah, you could do that, because you would create 2 audiences and you would have maybe a custom profile field, which is part-time, full-time, and then you can add that as a criteria to those 2 programs. And because you can have relative dates based on all of the groups that you assign to the programs, you could have, audience 1, audience 2, then you can set 30 days or 60 days in that way.
Great, thank you.
Cool idea.
Thanks, Meredith. You've absolutely smashed everyone's questions. So
excellent. I'm super glad. So thank you so much for joining and listening. Very much appreciate your time and all the great questions. Thank you, Matt, for being the best Matt on chat there is. And if anyone has any further questions after this, please feel free to reach us on the community. Otherwise, next couple of days, the recording for the session will be available. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.